Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
Hey there, nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are back with another episode of the Golden Age. This is a series that is dedicated to 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy Battle Reports, and this is Battle Report number 121. It is a 3,000 point battle that's fought between Scream with Emo as well as myself. My friend Scream with Emo is bringing House von Koss, his 3,000 point Vampire Counts army, and once again I will be playing the Lords of Azure Skies, my 3,000 point Stormcast Eternals army. So this series is still continuing on. We are basically taking our 3,000 point Stormcast Eternals army through its paces by having it fight every single army within our studio's collection, and so far it's doing pretty good. It's basically got 4 victories and 2 defeats at this point, so now we're trying to see exactly what ends up happening for this battle report. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play some background music real quick. As the music is playing, we'll show you photos of both armies as well as our army lists. If you want to see exactly what we're taking for this battle report, you can take a look at your own leisure by pausing and look at the list there, or you can check down the description box below, and they'll be listed there as well. So that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Crom, I've never prayed you before. I have no tongue for it. No one, not even you, will remember if we were good men or bad, why we fought, or why we died. No. All that matters is that 2 stood against many. That's what's important. Balor pleases you, Crom. So grant me one request. Grant me revenge. And if you do not listen, then to hell with you.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
So the scenario rules for this one is Battle Line. It is the most typical game of Warhammer Fantasy that we play on this channel, with standard deployment as well as standard victory conditions. In case you're not aware what victory conditions are for 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy Battle, you get the same amount of victory points as the unit cost and point value. At the same time, you also get 100 bonus victory points for taking out your enemy's general, as well as capturing their battle standard, as well as any standards they have as well. So the scenario rules over. Let's go and talk about deployment real quick. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, we're playing on a 4x6 table. My friend Screaming Emo is deployed on the near side of the table, and I'm deployed on the far side of the table. And pretty much my plan on this one is to pretty much secure the flanks for the most part. My opponent is playing Vampire Counts, and so this one's going to be kind of a challenge for me because I never really ran into a tar pit army yet with the Stormcast Eternals army. Needless to say, my opponent has numbers on me. He's got more units than I do. He also has much more fighters per unit than I do as well. So it's going to be really challenging to see exactly how I stack up against a horde army. Pretty much the only thing I'm really afraid of for the most part is pretty much on the flanks here. He's got Black Knights as well as his Hounds on the right hand side, trying to sweep over to my right hand side. At the same time, he also has his Crypt Horrors as well as his Terror guys sweeping from the left, and then in the center he's got his Zombies as well as his Crypt Ghouls. And then of course in the front there he's got his Hex Wraiths. Pretty much my plan is to pretty much finish off the Hex Wraiths as quickly as I can, try to secure my flanks, and then send my main killers, which are my Liberators, as well as my Prosecutors, as well as my Paladin Retributors, and send them directly into the center and hopefully defeat his forces that way. I do have my work cut out for me because this army doesn't fall vulnerable to break tests, because Vampire Counts have to use the unstable rules instead. So I do have my work cut out for me that way. However, I do have higher toughness, strength, as well as better armor saves and war saves throughout my army, so that should help me out for the most part. And that's pretty much the battle plan I'm kind of going with this one. Alright, so up next we'll talk about the deployment. Starting with House von Koss. Vanguard of 4 12 inches are 2 units of 5 Hex Wraiths. We have the Mask of the Black Death on the left hand side, as well as the Mask of the Red Death on the right hand side. Both units are armed with great weapons, and they're also riding skeletal steeds. So moving on to Scream of the Emo's left-hand flank, on the back left, that is Volkar, the Beast of Blutvold. He is a Terrorgeist, and that thing is made up the stuff of nightmares. Up at the front are the Revenants, which is a unit of 6 Crypt Horrors with no upgrade. And right next on the right-hand side, that is called the Balefire Carnival. It is a unit of 49 Crypt Ghouls with a Crypt Grass upgrade. And also in that unit as well as the Army's General, that is Marduk von Koss, the Baron of Drachenfels. He is a Strigoi Ghoul King. He's also the General of this army. He's a level 1 wizard with the lore of vampires. He knows the Invocation of Nehek. He's got Skabscrath, so that he has flaming attacks as well as Death Shriek ability, as well at the same time devastating charge. He's also got the Dragonbane Gem, giving a 2 abort save because he has to rely on a 5 regen save. And of course, he's also got the upgrades Aura of Dark Majesty, giving a -1 leadership to enemy units near him, as well as Curse the Revenant, giving him +1 to his wounds, and at the same time summon creatures of the night, so that way he can increase the size of fell bats, dire wolves, as well as bat swarms beyond their starting size. And that pretty much makes up the left-hand flank for this one. So moving on to the center right of his army, right in the middle there, that is a unit called the Rolling Bones. It is a corpse cart with no upgrades, and right behind it is the Calliope of Chaos. It is a Mortis engine that also has the Blasphemous Tome, which gives a 2-up bonus, casting bonus for Lore of Vampire spells. And then right next on the right hand side, that is the Walking Dead of San Reme. It is a unit of 40 zombies, the Musician is Standard Bearer, and leading that unit are 2 Necromancers. In the center, we have Gauntfield of Carrion Crows. He is a Master Necromancer, level 4 wizard with the Lore of Vampires. He's got the Invocation of Nehek, Van Hell's Dance Macabre, Hellish Vigor, as well as Raised Dead. He's also got a hand weapon as well as the Book of Azure, giving him +1 to his casting bonuses. So when combined with the Calliope of Chaos's Blasphemous Tome, gives him actually a 3-up bonus. And then right next to him, his right hand side, that is Sinister Jeffrey. He is a Necromancer, level 2 wizard with the Lore of Death. He's got Soul Blight as well as Doom and Darkness. He's got a hand weapon as well as a Dispel Scroll. So moving on to the right hand side, we have a unit called the Ghost Knight of Vergun. It is a unit of 10 Black Knights with full command, Standard Bearer, Musician, as well as Champion. They're armed with lances, heavy armor, as well as shields. They also got Skeletal Steeds with Barding, and they also have the Band of the Barrows, giving them +1 to hit in close combat. And finally, Vanguard up 12 inches on the far right hand side, we have the Hound of Tyndalos, which is a unit of 15 Direwolves, and that pretty much makes up deployment for this one. So with deployment over with, we go directly to the other side of the table for the Stormcast Eternals. Alright, so because of that, we go directly to the other side of the table for the Lords of Azure Skies. This is my 3,000 point Stormcast Eternals army. So starting from the back there, we have the Zenithal Titans, is a unit of 5 Paladin Retributors armed with reinforced Sigmund armor as well as lightning hammers. And right in front of them are a unit of 5 Prosecutors called the Seraphs of the Aether. They're armed with Sigmund armor as well as having paired Celestial hammers. And also in the back right hand side too is one of my characters, that is Icarus the Lamplighter. He is a Knight Azuros with Sigmund armor as well as a Starblade, and he's also got a Shriving Light upgrade. So make up the left-hand side of my center battle line. In the back there we have Orion the Sky Hunter. He's my Knight Venator. He's got Sigmund armor, a Realm Hunter's bow, as well as hand weapon, as well as a Star Eagle. And right in front we have the Scions of Mercy, which are a unit of 10 Judicators with Sigmund armor, Sky Bolt bows, and hand weapons. And that unit also has 2 Shock Bolt bows as well. On the right hand side of my center lines, we have the Solemn Martyrs. That is a unit of 10 Liberators. They have Sigmund armor, great weapons, as well as shields. As well as leading that unit is my General. That is Lord Ios of Azure Earth. He's my Lord Celestant. He's a General who's got Sigmund armor as well as a Sigmund Rune Blade. He's got the Staunch Defender upgrade as well. He's also riding the Thundercaller, which is a Dracoth. Also leading that unit, of course, we have Jathun the Sloan. He's my Lord Relictor. He's got Sigmund armor as well as Relic Hammer. He's got battle pairs of Lightning Storms, Healing Storms, as well as Lightning Chariot. He's also got a Dispel Scroll. Then also in that unit as well as my Knight Vexilor Horus the Stormbringer. He is my Battle Standard Bearer. He's got Sigmund armor, a great weapon, as well as Pack and the Meteoric Standard. And then finally on the right hand side we have Jericho the Doomcaller, who's my Knight Heralder. He's also got Sigmund armor as well as a Sigmarite Broadsword. And then on the right hand side of my center we have the Skyforge Snipers, which is a unit of 3 Vanguard Raptors. They're armed with Sigmund armor, hand weapons, as well as long strike crossbows. And then right behind them we have the Venerable Falcons, which is a unit of 3 Aether Wings. And then finally, on the far right-hand side of my army, we have the Heralds of the Dawn, which is a unit of 3 Vanguard Paladors that got Sigmund armor as well as Star Strike Javelins, and they're also riding Griff Chargers. And that pretty much makes up my deployment for this one. So with deployment over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and both Scream of the Emo I roll off for initiative to see which of us will be going first. So that takes us directly to the top of turn number 1, and the vampire accounts get to go first on this one. My friend Scream the Emo gained the initiative on this, and as you can see in this photo, he just moves up as quickly as he possibly can. He is playing vampire accounts, and the only way he can really get to terms with me is by getting me in close combat for the most part. And as you can see, pretty much everything that can march forward does march forward for the most part. So the first thing he ends up doing, of course, is he starts marching up the Hounds of Tindalos up to the right-hand side to get a good flanking position against my Heralds of the Dawn. At the same time, he also moves up his Black Knights from the Ghost Knights of Vergun. They only move at their normal movement allowance because they're not within 12 inches of their general. At the same time, as you can see there, the zombies from the Walking Dead of San Reme, as well as Rolling Bones, they also march up their maximum movement allowance as well. After that, he also moves up his Balefire Carnival, that huge horde formation of Crypt Ghouls. They move up their maximum movement allowance of 8 inches. And at the same time, so does the Calliope Chaos as well. I forgot to mention, the Calliope Chaos uses the Reliquary ability, and everything within 12 inches gets +1 to the regen save. He also marches up the Ravenous up to the left-hand side as well, moving forward 12 inches to the left-hand side. And because he was in range of Volkar, the Beast of Bloodfall, he actually march flies to the top of the tower there on the left-hand side. And because he was also within range of his Mask of Red Death as well as Mask of Black Death, they actually don't march forward just because they don't have enough range to actually move through the entire left-hand side of my army to use their Soul Hunters ability. So because that, what he does instead is he actually puts them in a blocking position right in front of my Judicators, which is actually pretty smart because they kind of block line of sight for my shooting abilities, which kind of gives me a negative penalty to shoot at. And at the same time, I can't hurt them because my shooting attacks are not magical attacks. And that pretty much makes up his move phase for this one. So here's a close-up of Volkar, the Beast of Bloodfall, perched right on top of that ruined tower there, march flying up to the top, getting ready to bring the pain, as it were. And here's a close-up of the Mask of the Black Death, as well as the Mask of the Red Death, getting a blocking position to kind of get in the way of my Scions of Mercy, so that way they can't do any long-range shooting. At the same time, you can see that the Ravenous are also in support there on the left-hand side. Here's a close-up of the Balefire Carnival, as well as the Calliope of Chaos, moving up forward directly towards the center of the battlefield near that tower. And as you see there, they got the +1 region for all units within 12 inches. And here's a close-up of Rolling Bones, as well as the Walking Dead of San Reme, slowly making their way across the battlefield towards my main battle line. And finally, here's a close-up of the Hounds of Tindalos, getting to a good flanking position to charge at my Heralds of the Dawn, as well as the Ghost Knights of Vergun, moving up forward in order to gauge my right-hand flank. So with the movement phase over with, we go directly to the magic phase. Alright, so that takes directly to the magic phase, and my opponent, Scream the Emo, actually had a pretty successful magic phase for the most part. So the first thing he decided to do is decides to cast Soul Blight off with Sinister Jeffrey, the Librarian of Curses. I, of course, use my Dispel Scroll in order to stop that spell from coming through, just because I don't want to suffer -1 strength and toughness for my units for the rest of the battle report. He then also tries to cast Doom and Darkness as well, and I was able to dispel that one using my Dispel Scroll, because suffering -3 leadership for the rest of the game, especially when he targeted my Scions of Mercy, could have been really bad, because if he managed to get his Ghostly Howl and Death Streak abilities off on my Liberators, it would have been really bad with the -3 leadership. So because I used my Dispel Scroll to kind of burn that. So because I was able to stop those death spells, it pretty much allowed him to control the rest of the magic phase with his Lore Vampire spells. The first thing he does, he casts his Raised Dead off directly in front of my Skyforge snipers, so those guys are about 1 inch away. At the same time, he also raises up, I think, 13 zombies when he managed to do that spell as well. The last thing he did, of course, was cast the boosted version of Van Hel's Dance Macabre, which basically targets all units within 12 inches, and because all those units were unengaged, they can also immediately move up forward 8 inches if they want to. And as you can see in this photo, he did exactly that. So you can see a huge tidal wave of undead just kind of moves up directly towards the middle of the battlefield, heading directly to my main battle lines. Now, to get that ability off, of course, he did miscast with Irresistible Force, and he miscast 6 on that bad boy.
Klaatu, Veranda.
So he centers the small round template directly above Gauntfield of Carrion Crows and managed to kill off, I think it was 8 zombies in the end. Also managed to put a wound on his Master Necromancer as well as on Sinister Jeffrey, the Librarian of Curses. It's not such a big deal though, because you know, he could bring back his guys if he needs to in later magic phases as well. Not to mention everything within 12 inches of this unit gets +1 to hit. At the same time, because he also hit Rolling Bones with that spell, that means everything within 6 inches of that unit also gets Always Strike first. So my opponent just kind of started a chain reaction of buffs for his undead army. So during the shooting phase, the Calliope of Chaos does use his Ghostly Howl ability onto my Solemn Martyrs, my Liberators, and does manage to put a wound on one of my guys. And like I said before, had my opponent managed to get that Doom and Darkness spell off directly onto my Solemn Martyrs, that could have easily been 4 wounds, which means 2 of my guys would have died because of that -3 leadership. So very happy I got rid of that spell. So with that, we go directly to the top of turn number 1 for the Stormcast Eternal. Now, if you're wondering what's going on with the photo here, you're not seeing anything weird. What I decided to do in this battle report, I decided to do a little bit of experimenting with the photos. I decided that on the opposing round, what I do is I'll go on the other side of the table and then take a photo from that point of view, so that way you can get a better understanding as to why either the opponent on the far side of the table, why they do the things they do. Most of the time, I take photos from the near side of the table, and the reason why is because it's just easier for me in most cases. But I wanted to try playing around with different perspectives so that way you can see and get a better understanding what my opponents are seeing or what I'm seeing when I'm on the other side of the table as well. So that's the reason why I'm doing this. Tell me what you guys think in the comments if you think you like this point of view or not, and of course I'll adjust accordingly whether you guys like it or not. So anyways, so from this point of view, what ended up happening is that of course this photo is taken out of the move phase. I decided to take the offense on this one. My opponent is getting dangerously close to me and he's going to overwhelm me with numbers. So this is the go for broke moment. Either I gung-ho, go for it, ride or die for this point. So the first thing I do, of course, I declare a series of charges. The first thing I do is I charge forward my Venerable Falcons directly into the newly summoned zombies that are located there from the Raised Dead. I managed to put those guys in their blocking position so that way they can stay away from my Skyforge snipers. The next thing I do, of course, I declare a charge with my Herald of the Dawn, my 3 Vanguard Paladors. They go directly into the Ghost Knight of her gun, just because I have a really good feeling that I can actually smash that unit pretty quickly and get that over with as well. Meanwhile, I also charge forward too with my Ceres the Aether. They actually go flying directly into the Ravenous, engage those guys in close combat as well. At the same time, I also charge in forward my Zenithal Titans to go directly to the Mask of the Black Death on the right hand side. And then I also charge forward my Sullen Martyrs directly, kind of clipping a little bit the Mask of the Red Death on the left hand side. And the reason why I did that is because, yes, they're ethereal, but my general is a beast in close combat, and his Rune Blade is actually a magical attacks. So I can know, hopefully I can just destroy those guys in combat resolution alone, and then just get rid of that unit entirely. So that way it's one less unit of Hex Race I gotta worry about. And at the same time, everyone else just kind of maintains position for the most part. I do take Icarus Lamplighter and March Flame over the Balefire Carnival directly behind them, so that way you can use his Shriving Light ability later on in the battle report. And that pretty much makes up my move phase for this one. So here's a close-up of my Ceres of the Aether going directly into the Ravenous, engaging those guys in close combat. And here's a close of my Zenithal Titans going directly into the Mask of the Black Death, and hopefully I'll be able to destroy those guys at combat res, and I'm able to do so because my Lightning Hammers actually count as magical attacks, so that part is pretty awesome. And here's a close-up of my Knight Azeroth, Icarus, and Lamplighter getting ready to use his Shriving Light ability directly onto the Balefire Carnival. I won't be able to use it yet because he moved this turn, but hopefully they'll still be within range of this unit, and I can really tear him up with my Lantern. And here's a close-up of the Scions of Mercy as well as Orion the Skyhunter, just kind of maintaining positions so that they can shoot later on. At the same time, there's also a close-up of my Sullen Martyrs going directly into the Mask of the Red Death on the left-hand side. Now, if you're wondering why the two units aren't touching, it's because that Hexwraith on the left-hand side, his Scythe is kind of preventing us from doing so. But just imagine that my general is clipping that unit and you get a good idea what's happening over there. And here's a close of my Venerable Falcons, get ready to intercept the newly summoned zombies brought up from the Raised Dead spell from the previous turn. And finally, here's a close-up of my Heralds of the Dawn going directly into the Ghost Knight for gun, ready to bring the pain and hopefully destroy these guys with combat resolution. I'm on Griff Chargers. I got good strength 5 attacks for my riders. This should be a good day. So with that, we skip the shooting phase, skip the magic phase because it was pretty much stopped dead center by my opponent. We go directly to the shooting phase, and all hail the Star-Fated Arrow. So the first thing I do is, of course, I activate Orion the Skyhunter. I have him fire his Star-Fated Arrow, which means that basically one shot per battle. Basically, he gets to open fire with his Realm Hunter bow. He loses his sniper special rule, but basically he also ignores basically penalties for firing it. And at the same time, if he rolls a 6 to wound, he also gets Heroic Killing Blow, and if not, it causes D6 damage. So because of that, I decided to take aim directly at Volkar, the Beast of Loot Vault. Not only do I manage to hit him, but I went to roll to wound, I roll a perfect 6, and because of that Heroic Killing Blow, I managed to kill that Terrorgeist in one shot. And just like that, it is gone. For the rest of the shooting phase, I did absolutely nothing, so because we go directly to the combat phase, as you can see in this photo, we actually made a mistake a little bit on this one. And the reason why is because I made a mistake on Killing Blow. For whatever reason, I forgot that War Beasts are actually immune to Killing Blow. I just totally forgot that. Whatever reason, I thought my guys were cavalry for some reason. So because of that, my opponent actually just absolutely destroyed me in this one because, like I said, I made a mistake. For whatever reason, I thought my guys were cavalry instead of war beasts. So because I actually managed to roll 2 6s and managed to kill off 2 members of my of my Heralds of the Dawn. So just like that, 2 of my Vanguard Paladors are dead. I do manage to kill out 5 members of the Black Knights of Ghost Knights of Vergun. However, though, each of my riders are worth 6 wounds, so he won this combat by 7. Needless to say, I had to take a break test. I fail my break test and I flee. My opponent does not pursue me at all, actually. All he does is a quick combat reform over to the left-hand side to stare at the left-hand flank of my army, because my Vanguard Palador, the last remaining one that was left, he just fled completely off the table. So continuing on the combat between my Venerable Falcons as well as the newly raised Undead was absolutely horrible. The zombies were actually be able to put 3 wounds directly onto my Aether Wings, killing one of them, actually putting a floating one on the other. And unfortunately for me, I just kind of flubbed my rolls. I was only able to kill 2 of the zombies, so that part was horrific as well. So needless to say, my opponent actually won this combat. He actually won this combat by 1 because, actually it was tied up he won this combat by 1. The reason was because while I did charge, he did get an extra wound, so it negated that extra bonus. However, he does have a rank over my Aether Wings, and I don't have that rank, so because of that, he won by 1 on that one. Now, my Aether Wings are only leadership 6, which means they dropped to leadership 5, and needless to say, I did not pass my leadership test, even with the reroll for my Battle Standard Bearer. My Aether Wings fled off the edge of the table. They went away. The newly summoned zombies, of course, pursued, and they go directly into my Skyforge snipers, and just like that, my Long Strike Raptors are now engaged in close combat. Meanwhile, combat between my Solemn Martyrs as well as the Mask of the Red Death went exactly the plan. My general was able to kill 2 of those guys, so because of that, part was awesome. So combined with my rank bonuses, because I decided to stand on my shield wall, and at the same time got my Battle Standard Bearer as well as in this unit as well, I beat this army, that unit pretty badly, and just through combat res alone, I basically just atomized the unit with the instability rolls. Meanwhile, the combat between the Zenithal Titans as well as the Mask of the Black Death did not go exactly the plan. I do manage to kill 3 of those Hex Rays, which is awesome. However, they already put 2 wounds directly onto my guys as well. So that part was kind of horrible as well. I forgot how, even with combat res in the end, they still had 2 Hex Rays still left over. So my guys are still engaged in close combat with that unit. And then combat between my Ceres of the Aether as well as the Ravenous actually was pretty good, actually. I do lose one of my prosecutors, which is kind of sad, but after it was all said and done, I managed to kill one of the Ravenous, managed to kill one of those Crypt Terrors. At the same time, I was able to put a floating wound, 2 floating wounds on another one as well. So that part was all kinds of epic. And that pretty much makes it my turn for this one. So with that, we go directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Vampire count, and once again, this photo is taken after the movement phase, and as you see in this photo, my opponent, Scream of the Emo, once again takes the offense. The first thing he does, of course, he declares a charge with the Ghost Knights of Vergun and go directly into the right-hand flank of my Skyforge snipers, so now they're stuck in a pincer attack between zombies in the front as well as Black Knight on the right hand side. At the same time, he also charges in the Calliope of Chaos as well as the Belfarner Carnival directly into my Solemn Martyrs, and so because of that, that huge fight's going to take place right there in the center. Meanwhile, the rest of his army just kind of moves up for the most part. The Hounds of Tyndalos move up their maximum movement allowance, as well as the Walking Dead of San Reme, as well as Rolling Bones, just kind of moving up and on the right hand side. At the same time, the Ravenants are still engaged in close combat with my prosecutors. And as you can see, my opponent is just sweeping across the right hand flank, just kind of destroying things. He pretty much has a traffic jam on the right hand side just because there are not that many units for his guys to engage with. So here's a close-up of the Ravenous, still engaged in close combat with my Ceres of the Aether, and this one is actually going pretty well so far. And here's a close-up of the Belfire Carnival as well as the Calliope of Chaos charging directly into my Solemn Martyrs. And I forgot to mention this, but the Reliquary also gives +1 regen for everything within 6 inches. We actually rolled that from the beginning of the turn. The Reliquary actually didn't cause any damage to my guys just because my War Save was able to stop most of it. So that part's kind of nice. This combat I'm actually looking forward to just because whoever ends up winning this combat in the end will actually win the battle report, because there are a lot of points on both sides being concentrated in this one little engagement. And here's a close-up of the Ghost Knights of the Gun as well as the newly summoned up zombies going directly into my Skyforge snipers. And finally, here's a close-up of the Talons of Tyndalos as well as the Walking Dead of San Reme and Rolling Bones, just trying to find love in all the wrong places. So during the magic phase, my opponent decided to cast the Soul Blight off directly onto my Solemn Martyrs. I of course used some of my power dice to stop that. Unfortunately though, because I used so many of my power dice to stop that spell, I was pretty much unable to stop the rest of the magic phase for my opponent. He does manage to get Doom and Darkness off with Sinister Jeffrey, the Librarian of Curses. Managed to put a -3 on the leadership of my Sullen Martyrs, which means that my leadership is now 7 as the highest leadership for that unit. So that part is horrible. And to make matters worse, it's a remain in play spell, and to make it even doubly worse, the shooting phase is next, which means that these Death Shriek and Ghostly Howl abilities can really screw up my forces and thin them out pretty bad. So because of that, the next thing he does, of course, he casts the boosted version, the level 3 version of Invocation of Nehek for Gauntfield of Carrion Crows. Managed to use the Invocation of Nehek with everything within 18 inches of that. So as you can see in this photo, he actually manages to raise the number of zombies in that newly raised undead unit to 20 zombies. Also managed to heal up 4 Black Knights from the Ghost Knights of Vergun. At the same time, also managed to bring back, I think it was 6 zombies from the Walking Dead of San Reme. Also managed to heal a wound off of Gauntfield of Carrion Crows. And because the Rolling Bones, the Corpse Card, was also targeted by a spell, everything within 6 inches of that unit also always strike first. So that is absolutely terrifying. So with that, we go directly to the shooting phase, and once again, the Calliope of Chaos opens up with its Ghostly Howl ability, and at the same time, Marduk von Koss, the Baron of Drachenfels, he also uses his Death Shriek ability because he has Skabscrath, and both those guys target my Sullen Martyrs. In the end, they're able to kill 2 of my Liberators, as well as finish off a 3rd one with its with added floating wound on it as well. That -3 leadership, man, it really hurts, especially when you use it in tandem with Death Shriek as well as Ghostly Howl. So from there we go directly to the combat phase. As you can see in this photo, the Ghost Knights of Vergun, if I remember correctly, they were the ones that actually finished off my Skyforge snipers. They managed to kill those guys to the very last man. I think 2 of them got killed with Killing Blow, and I think the rest of the attacks were able to finish off the last one. The zombies didn't have to do anything at that point. So because of that, both those units do combat reforms to face against my right-hand flank. Meanwhile, combat here in the center was absolutely a bloodbath. The first thing that my opponent, of course, does is he issues a challenge with Marduk von Koss, the Baron of Drachenfels. I decide to answer the challenge with my General, Lord Ios of Azure Earth, as well as the Thundercaller. In the end, I was only able to put 1 wound directly onto him. I just did horrible during that fight. At the same time, though, to my credit, though, my opponent was unable to do anything back to me, so that part was kind of nice. So for the rest of the combat phase, in the end, I just kind of flubbed really bad. I only managed to kill 3 Crypt Ghouls from the Balefire Carnival, as well as put 2 wounds directly onto the Calliope of Chaos. Those regen saves really helped out the Calliope of Chaos, giving it 3-up regen saves, so that part was horrible. Meanwhile, the combat between the counterattack that came back, of course, managed to kill 3 of my Liberators. So just like that, my opponent actually scores 6 wounds on that part. So because of that, I do actually do pretty well. I actually put, 6 wounds as well, so we're kind of tied that way. However, the big difference, though, was the fact that 2 units charged at me at the same time. He also had rank bonuses. So I think what ended up happening, I think he won by 2, I think is what ended up happening. So combined my leadership 7, dropped me down to leadership 5. And so because I had to take my leadership test, I failed the first one, and I failed the reroll, so I have to flee, and I think I flee 5 inches, and the Calliope of Chaos I think moves forward 7 inches, just bumping into that ruined building in the back. The Balefire Carnival also pursues and smashes directly into my Scions of Mercy, engaging those guys in close combat as well. And just like that, my General, my Lord Relictor, my Knight Vexilor, as well as my Knight Heralder, they're all being killed in one fell swoop. Meanwhile, combat between the Zenithal Titans as well as the last members of the Black Death went accordingly my way. Managed to kill those 2 Hex Wraiths. I do a quick combat reform real quick. My Zenithal Titans look directly on the left-hand flank of the Balefire Carnival. Meanwhile, on the left-hand side, things take a turn for the worse. The fight between my Seraph of the Aether against the Ravenous. I was able to put 2 wounds on that unit, finish off one of the Crypt Horrors, and put a floating wound on another one. However, though, they managed to kill 2 of my Seraph of the Aether. I just bombed my rolls for my armor save as well as for my 5 award saves. So because I lose this battle bad. And to make matters worse, I gotta take a leadership test. I believe I had to take a leadership and a leadership 7 on this one. And as you can see in this photo, I did not roll a leadership 7, instead I rolled a leadership 9, which means my Seraph of the Aether have to flee. And when I roll my flee result, I roll 3 dice, because I got Swiss tried. I got a 2, a 2, and a 1, which means I only flee 4 inches. The Crypt Horrors of the Ravenous decide to pursue, and they roll like, I think, 10 or 11. So just like that, the Ravenous live up to their name and eat the last remaining survivors of the Seraph of the Aether alive as they go tearing across the battlefield, heading directly to O'Reilly Hall on the upper left-hand side of the battlefield. And just like that, one of my main kill units are gone. So the only thing I have left are my Judicators as well as my Zenithal Titans of my Paladin Retributors, and I know there's no way in heck I'm going to be able to win this one because the other half of my opponent's army is still completely intact. So at this point, basically just call it the game and just kind of surrender at this point because there's no use in going on because I'm not going to be able to pull this off. So just like that, the Stormcast Eternals lost this battle and a victory was netted by the Vampire Counts. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to directly to the After Action Report because this battle report is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
I thought about staying. They offered me the chance to lead them, to teach them, to be king.
Uh-huh.
But my place is here, so I swallowed the juice, said the words, and here I am.
Did you say the words right this time?
Well, maybe I didn't say every single tiny little syllable, no, but basically I said them, yeah. Basically.
Alright folks, now it's time for the After Action Report. This is the part of the battle report we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we do battle. This is the After Action Report for the Golden Age Warhammer Fantasy Battle Report number 121, and this one ended being a defeat for yours truly. In the end, Scream of the Emo was able to score 2,211 victory points, while I was able to scrape by 525 victory points. For my losses, I lost Lord Ios of Azure Earth and the Thundercaller, Jathun the Sullen, Horus the Stormbringer, Jericho the Doomcaller, the Sullen Martyrs, the Ceres of the Aether, the Skyforged Snipers, the Venerable Falcons, and the Heralds of the Dawn. In the end, Scream of the Emo lost the Mask of the Black Death, the Mask of the Red Death, and Volkar the Beast of Bloodfold. I got massacred in this battle report. Scream of the Emo's forces just simply overwhelmed me. And this is actually one of the major problems with actually playing Stormcast Eternals in 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy Battle. It's that while they hit hard, they actually have no staying power when they're fighting against opponents. I mean, if they can't break their opponent in the combat phase or break tests, they're basically done for. They just don't have the numbers to sustain casualties. And when you're facing against horde armies like Undead, for example, which don't break because they have the instability rules, it could really actually be very, very bad for you for the most part. I'm actually surprised to see how much of a glass cannon army this Stormcast Eternal army really is. Don't get me wrong, the Stormcast Eternals have great stats, they have powerful attacks and excellent armor and ward saves. The problem though is that every single time they take a casualty, it actually is really telling and it actually impacts the army. For every loss they take, it really affects the overall army as a whole. So because of that, they just don't have that ability to last as long as most enemy armies do. Not to mention the magic phase is also very telling in this battle report. The Stormcast's Eternal magic system is actually very weak. They only have their battle prayers and that's all they have. They can't actually access any of the lores of magic or actually have magical levels, and because of this, Scream of the Emo's magic phase are actually very, very powerful in this game as well, as you can see throughout the battle report as well. For example, his assault on the right hand flank against my army was pretty much unstoppable. He overwhelmed my forces with bringing back undead. He was also to raise up his losses for his casualties as well, also give them buffs to hits as well as their abilities to move very rapidly. So because that really, really helped him out, he was able just to steamroll my forces with just the sheer mass of the forces that he had on him and was able to bring home the victory on this one. So in the end, currently this Stormcast Eternals army's current record right now is at 4 victories as well as 3 defeats, which is pretty respectable. And even though I lost, this was still an extremely fun battle against an excellent opponent, and as always, I am looking forward to the rematch. So that's good for this one, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is always appreciated. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest, greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.